All right. Yesterday we were talking about your column, and it was a wonderful column on ESPN.com. And I wonder, because I've seen a few of your updates today on ESPN. What's the latest from Major League Baseball on how they're attempting to come back? What's your latest update?
There haven't been substantive discussions today. It's not going to be like every day they get together and try to hash things out. Things yesterday were cordial enough, and it didn't focus a whole lot on finance. It was mostly about the other important thing, really the more important thing, which is how are they going to return to play and do so safely? And what does that plan look like? And the devil is in the details there. And Major League Baseball is expected over the next couple of days to present a plan to the Players Association that outlines exactly what they're going to do with regards to testing, with regards to travel, with regards to social distancing. Are you going to have to wear a mask inside the clubhouse? How is all of this going to work? And the thing that gives me, it doesn't give me pause. It gives me excitement, I guess, because it's going to be able to land them closer to playing games, is that they're both on the same side there, right? Like, Major League Baseball does not want players to get sick. Players do not want themselves or their family members or coaches or managers or support staff or trainers or anybody else who's going to be around the clubhouse to get sick. So they have incentive to work together on this and get as close as possible to as safe as possible as you can. Because, look, they're going to be taking risks simply by playing, simply by going out there. They could be sheltered in place, or they could be out in the world. If you're sheltered in place, you are less likely to get sick. If you're out in the world, you are more likely to. But that doesn't mean necessarily that you have to or are going to. And if you do, or if somebody in that clubhouse does, there need to be protocols in place to ensure that it does not spread like we know the coronavirus can.
ESPN's Jeff Passan here on Tim and Sid. Jeff, the notion of the July 4th weekend as a potential start date, the more comments you're seeing around baseball, whether they're from the governor of Illinois yesterday saying the players they can't make this about them, to Mark Teixeira on ESPN saying he would play pennies on the dollar to get back.
The governor was so stupid. That was such an ignorant comment. I love it when people who are worth billions of dollars go and talk about how others need to take a pay cut. It's just so rich. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Don't disagree at all with you. But my point is, I think what baseball has done here is kind of brilliant in just floating that date, because the more I'm reading your stuff and the more I'm hearing, July 4th is a nice idea, but there's a lot of legwork financially that has to happen. But what the owners have done is place the players in a bit of a corner where you have Joe fan at home thinking, you know what, that's a hell of an idea, July 4th weekend. That's an incredible moment. That's a celebration, to quote Rob Manfred, of coming back and recovery. They have, in a very clever way, I think, painted the players in a bit of a corner here.
Well, I don't know that I agree with that. And here's why. I don't think that the players getting what they want and a 4th of July start date are mutually exclusive necessarily. Okay. Listen, I'm not a lawyer, so I can't say, having read through the agreement that they have with Major League Baseball from late March, whether they are due or entitled to their full prorated salaries. That is a hill that they might die on, though. And here's the thing, guys. There's a compromise that is waiting there, that is ready to be taken, and that is deferred salaries. And I say this because now listen, deferring money later is not worth as much as money now. So there would have to be some sort of interest involved here. But if the players say we want to get paid our full salaries, then owners could very easily come back to them and say, we will pay you your full salaries. We will just do so at a later date to ensure that as our revenues are down this year, we give ourselves room with cash flow such that we can make payroll and keep others with us, like, front office people and other types of workers employed still, and that we can make our payroll. Now, of course, so many of the people who own Major League Baseball teams, guys, are billionaires, like even without owning those teams. Mm-hmm. So theoretically, they could probably make payroll. But we also have to recognize that a lot of these clubs are leveraged to the gills. And that is how people grow wealth. They take assets that they have, they borrow against them, and they invest that money. And what that does is that leaves you, when you need cash flow, in a very precarious position. You either need to go and borrow it, or you need to turn in some of the assets that you have and sell them. And what baseball owners need right now is cash flow to pay the players.
Jeff Passan, MLB insider, joining us here on Tim and Sid. And I love how you didn't let the, hey, workers assume risk while we sit back and watch the way that the history of time has been traveled, at least in a North American society for the last while, pass by without being acknowledged. I enjoyed that. The one thing that, and I saw your hit with Windhorse on ESPN earlier today, and I know our job more in TV than radio is to get as much information in as little time as possible. And you guys were going back and forth on the similarities and differences between MLB and NBA. The one fundamental difference that I see between the NHL, the NBA, and Major League Baseball and their returns, the two leagues trying to finish off their season are talking about hub cities or a host city and playing games there. Major League Baseball is talking about plane travel and playing in their home stadium. Like, that is a huge fundamental difference, isn't it?
An enormous difference. And the reason that they're doing that is because Major League Baseball recognizes that in order to generate revenue, which the NBA and NHL did for 80% of their seasons with ticket sales and merchandise and concessions and all the things you get when you have stadiums that are open, Major League Baseball can't do that. So they need to make their partners who are going to pay them as happy as possible. And those partners who are going to pay them the most out of everyone are regional sports networks. And regional sports networks want to be able to broadcast games from home stadiums so they can get their crew there and so they can have the familiar look of the stadium and it doesn't look like they're putting literally a minor league product on the air. So this is a nod to those RSNs, knowing that billions of dollars are going to come in to broadcast however many games are out there. And look, that adds risk. That adds significant risk. If you're going to be traveling, even if you travel private, you're still staying in hotels. Even if you're staying in hotels where you're the only ones there are still hotel workers there. You're going to be crossing paths as you go around the country. And again, even if it's just a limited amount of travel, Central Division playing Central Division teams, et cetera, even if it's a limited amount of travel, it is still travel and there still is risk with that. It's just as Wendy said earlier today, how much risk are these leagues willing to tolerate? And that is going to be adjudicated in these negotiations between the league and the players. Because as long as the league acknowledges, yes, players, you are going to be at greater risk because you are traveling, and we are going to do X, Y, and Z to ensure that we are as safe as possible, I think it's incumbent on the players at that point to say, we are comfortable with this or we are not. And if they are not comfortable with the risks that come with traveling, I don't think anybody can blame them for not coming back. If they are not comfortable with how billions of dollars are going to be divvied up, that's where you get into the optics problem.
Jeff, this show's always better when you're on it. We really appreciate you jumping on. It's a busy time, and it's going to be a lot of this kind of stuff. And we thank you always. Appreciate it, brother.
You guys are the best. And listen, this kind of stuff, honestly, as wonky as it is, means that we're on a path towards seeing sports. Sure. And let's just hope for everybody's sake that they do this the right way, that they do it safely, and that we've got baseball and basketball and soccer and football and hockey and everything else back on our TVs sooner than later.
Here. See you, brother. Take care.
Take care, boys.
Jeff Passan, one and only from ESPN.